Hi, Malia. Thank you for
Hi, Iris.
joining.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So thanks everyone for joining. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces from all over North America and all over the world. It's really such a treat to have this expand beyond just Toronto. So thank you to everybody who's joining, and Malia, who's joining us from the US. Just to give you some background, I'm Iris Urbanescu. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Director of Partnerships at Tour Radar. And I'm so thrilled to be sitting here virtually with Malia Asfour, who's the Director of the North American Office of Visit Jordan. Malia is a longtime friend and industry colleague of mine. We've traveled to multiple countries together. She's worked at the tourism board for 25 years and has been a really large contributor to how resilient Jordan has become as a tourist destination. So when we speak of survival, Jordan, I think you would agree, Malia, is a small but mighty country that's really seen a lot of changes over the years.
Absolutely.
And Malia's led the charge in opening up the North American, South American, and Chinese markets for Jordan. And she also worked alongside Tourism Cares in 2018 to launch the Meaningful Travel Map, which is the very first multi-day social enterprise tourism experience in Jordan, which they've done an amazing job at promoting to support local communities throughout the country.
Thank you.
So I'm so happy to chat with you about this right now, because as a destination tourism board, you just bring such broad insight from all verticals within the industry: airlines, hotels, tour operators, attractions, and of course, the destination management angle itself. So thanks for coming and joining me. So give us a little overview of what's the lay of the land in Jordan right now. How is the political leadership handling the coronavirus situation?
So it's actually kind of exciting right now because we're on our 7th day of 0 cases inside Jordanian borders. So this is like huge. We have flattened the curve. So this is really exciting. Yes, it's very cool. And I think a lot of it has to do with taking action early and trust in the leadership of the country. And so I think that's been really huge. Unlike other destinations where there's fake news and a lack of trust, there has been total trust with the leadership from early on in taking hold of the crisis. Tough decisions, because economically speaking, it really affects us. Tourism is our oil, and it's 12 to 14% of our GDP, and that's huge to lose all of that, especially in a year that's supposed to be even a bigger peak year than last year. And so very hard hit economically, but as our king has been saying, and the ministers of health and the prime minister has been saying, is our people come first. And so the health of our people comes. It's been a huge rallying from the people for the leadership as well. So there's a lot of mutual understanding in the country of why they needed to do this and why they did it. And the results are in the pudding, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, trust seems to be the ingredient to success. Trust in leadership.
Very much so.
And speaking of trust, I mean, it goes without saying that this pandemic has triggered a global loss of trust on multiple levels throughout the consumer travel journey, from how things were handled on a basic health and safety level in people's own countries to questioning how safe the travel infrastructure is in general. So keeping in mind that there's now trepidation from the consumer on several different levels, what can destinations do to regain consumer trust, knowing that there are areas that you cannot control, but you may be able to respond to, like airline cancellation policies and the way that tour operators and whatnot have lost trust with their customers?
I think there's a lot of pieces. I mean, it's a big, huge puzzle, right? And a lot of pieces have to get put in place. I think your first step is the health and hygiene of every piece in your destination has to come together. From the moment you land, get off an airplane, how you get off an airplane, how you get your visa, how you get into through customs into the airport, get your luggage, get in, whether it's on a bus, how the bus is put together, or if it's FIT, how you're doing that, and how you check in the hotel, etc. What ingredients are being used to sanitize your airports, your airlines, your properties, your guides, what are the requirements you have, etc. So I think that the destinations who are the ones who do an outstanding job in their health and hygiene process are going to be the ones with the competitive edge. And I think that's going to be your first step. And then the second step is the communication with from the DMCs to the tour operators to their partners, and from the DMOs to their partners, to tell the story. What is being done in the country? What are the products that are being used? You don't want the Mickey Mouse product. You want the real product that's going to be sustainable, that's not going to be carcinogenic, that's going to be good for your health, not bad for you in the long run. So there's all these complicated pieces that need to go into place, but there's also needs to be bilateral agreements between countries to talk about health and hygiene. And that's like kind of the first time that this kind of thing happens. You talk about bilateral ties on economic issues, but not usually on health and hygiene. So this is going to be a whole new dimension, I think, that takes place.
It's a new world, as they say, that we're going to be operating in. And I think destinations are in this unique position where you can, as public sector organizations, you can build trust with your audiences, and you have a duty to communicate these things to your markets and to your people. And so you're actually in a great position.
I think transparency is key for any destination. I think you have to be open and transparent and honest.
That's great.
Because if you lose that trust, you lose the destination. If people start writing negative things about the destination with regards to hygiene on social media, you're doomed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to be very careful. You got to do it right, or else don't do it.
That's right. So my next question is, because of your role representing the North American and specifically the US market for Jordan, and because the US is the biggest source market for many tourism destinations worldwide, unfortunately, America has undoubtedly been the hardest hit in the coronavirus. There's much news coverage around how poorly the situation has been handled by the government. Given that restrictions may be lifted and Americans might be able to travel internationally again prior to having the situation under control, what will American recovery have to look like from Jordan's perspective before the country starts feeling comfortable hosting this market again? And I think your answer will be quite relevant for other destinations as well.
Well, I think it's going to be, there has to be trust factor between, first of all, I think when domestic tourism starts to come back into a destination, that is going to be your prototype, right? That's going to be who you hear from to learn what's open, what's closed, what's working well, how the country is managing itself, especially from a hygiene perspective, because the locals are going to be your test run, and your locals are going to be trying that. And then you're going to go to the next level to be able to communicate that out and to gain the trust of the traveler through those kind of things. But the destination has to be ready. The people of the destination that's known for its hospitality, like Jordan, Jordanians have to be ready to receive Americans.
That's the biggest thing.
And that's the biggest thing. And so, a lot of us have been talking with each other as destinations and groups of destinations together, is that, are the locals in the destination going to be ready to receive Americans, because there has been such bad publicity and bad news and lack of leadership in America in the eyes of people living abroad.
And do you think
it's a dilemma? It's a dilemma because it is our number one source market.
Yeah.
And Americans spend more than Europeans usually when they travel. So it's a very important economic piece for us. And yet, how do we as destinations work with the American government and the tour operators to ensure that there's a safety standard before they even arrive in destination?
Yeah, absolutely. So would you say it's a marriage between speaking to the American government, making sure they're at a certain level of safety in the eyes of being able to travel internationally, but then also coaching your local operators and your local industry on, xenophobia that might be happening around the American traveler and the discrimination?
Absolutely. I think there needs to be coaching about xenophobia across the board, not just the American traveler, but there are other travelers that we have seen discrimination against in other countries that we have to do a whole part of education around that. And really, it's the economic piece will also play a big role in the return process of tourism, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's going to be different. I mean, right now it takes, I was talking to the general manager of the hotel, Marriott Properties in Jordan, and it takes, usually pre-COVID, it was 24 minutes to turn a room around. Now it's going to take 1 hour and 10 minutes to turn a room around. So you're going to have to double the amount of staff you have in the hotel to just turn rooms around because you have to use all these disinfectant and stuff. So it's going to change the whole pricing. It's going to change the whole dynamic, how we choose to travel, where we choose to go, and the whole market. Yeah.
So we just have a couple minutes left. I'm going to end with one question, and then we'll turn it over to the audience questions. Sure. It's around over-tourism. So we've seen a lot of videos of previously overrun famous sites like Angkor Wat with just a few tourists. And so it's clear that over-tourism is no longer an issue in many destinations thanks to coronavirus. But I have two questions for you. Do you agree that this is an unprecedented opportunity to rebuild tourism in the right way and avoid our mistakes of the past? And what are the barriers you see to rebuilding?
100,000,000%. Absolutely. I see, I have a lot of thought on this. And one of the pieces that worries me is that we were doing really well on, for example, single-use plastic, right? And reusable water bottles and other sustainable pieces in the travel industry. And now it's going to be like, well, oh, it's a hygiene thing. So is that going to set us backwards, or is that going to set us forward? There's also, I see this as an opportunity for countries and destinations who weren't working on a sustainable level to pause, reflect, and go back into looking at how they can build more sustainably going forward. I got a video today from someone in Jordan where you could see the view of Mount Hermon in Lebanon in the background because the air was so clear. And that is not something we usually see. And now we're seeing these things. We're seeing visible differences in rivers and in different parts of the world when it comes to the air and the atmosphere and the air that we're breathing and climate change. And so we really need to look at that before we push the play button again, and every country needs to get on the bandwagon with that. I feel that that's like hugely important. Mother Nature has really taught us a lesson here, and we need to take the bull by the horns.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there will be barriers that we'll come across, but it's worth it right now.
Yeah,
we have hindsight that we didn't have in the past.
Yeah. And I think so over tourism, they can do, it's all about management. And if you start looking at your management structure so that you don't have people, so many people in one place at one time, but you manage so that you can spread it out a little bit, I think that's the way you can deal with not having over tourism again, but dealing with the management of tourism in a better way.
We just have one question that I'll be able to take from the crowd, and it's from Ganel. Can you give us some examples on what you think around how marketing will look for destination management organizations post-COVID?
I think we have to look at it from a vertical perspective. I think you have to look at it from first of all, we're going to have different phases, right? We're in the phase of inspiration right now, and everybody's like sending inspirational videos out about destinations and trying to get that out. But I think what's going to be the cutting edge is how we communicate our hygiene issues and how we're inspecting everything that has to do with hygiene vertically. From when the person decides to leave till the person gets to the destination and tours and comes back. And I think that's the key, is the vertical integration of tourism and how we communicate that out from a hygiene perspective.
Perfect. Yeah. And it has to do with the source market as well. So it's a whole integrated experience. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah.
Great. I think that's it. One more question. Should we expect a sharp increase in the costs of travel after the pandemic?
I think it's going to change. When you have airlines taking out their middle seats or not selling their middle seats, and then you have the cost to every property is going to change because of the amount of time it takes to switch a room around or hire more staff. The big conglomerates that had these big buffets, all you can eat, that's going to be a thing of the past, and they probably have to have stations where they have to have more chefs. So I think the cost structure is definitely going to change. And I think consumers are going to become more picky. I certainly will become more picky, where I want to go stay somewhere where I know that's going to have the standards, the highest standards of hygiene, versus somewhere that doesn't. So I think we're going to start looking at the pricing from a different perspective, and what's more important for us moving forward. And maybe there's places where that could be more sustainable and prices could go down, where can even it off. But it's going to change.
Yeah. The industry is going to change in ways we don't yet know.
We don't know. Mm-mm.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. There are a few more questions that we didn't get to answer. So if you have these questions and can bring them over to the sessions that we'll be hosting at, I believe, 8:20, please do that. Malia will be able to answer those at that time.
Happy to try.
Thank you.
Thank you, Iris.